Welcome back to another episode of Bucks Latest presented by Fan Arch. As always, I'm your host, Dean Simon. And before we get into everything, please make sure to leave a like, leave a comment down below, and subscribe. We are still on the road to 2,000 subscribers. So if that's a journey you want to follow along with, something you feel inclined or compelled to do, please press that big red subscribe button down below and also turn on post notifications so you don't miss out on future videos. Okay, so Milwaukee Bucks win 3-1 beginning to the 2025-26 season after a win against the New York Knicks in Pfizer Forum 121-111 after trailing by 14 points in the first half, trailing by 12 at halftime. A second half double-digit comeback leads the Milwaukee Bucks to a win, and they were led by Giannis Antetokounmpo, Ryan Rollins, who was essentially the story of the game, and Miles Turner's defense. And we're going to get into all of these things, but just what an impressive victory, even though Jalen Brunson did end up sustaining sort of a groin injury towards the end, and he was kind of hobbling around, limping towards the bench, but did re-enter the game. Besides that, what an incredible performance again from Giannis. 37, 8 and 7, 2 blocks and a steal, a plus 18 for the game. Also, something that I feel like might get lost with this game is that I'm very much kind of a plus minus demon, and I look for players that are plus minus demons themselves. And Miles Turner in this game, along with AJ Green and Ryan Rollins, they were all incredible in the plus minus department. Giannis and Miles Turner each a plus 18. AJ Green a plus 13, even though he only really made his impact in terms of scoring the ball. Of course, throughout the entirety of the game, he is acting as an excellent spacer, and he's just keeping the floor wide open for guys like Giannis, guys like Ryan Rollins to make their drives towards the basket. But AJ Green had all 9 of his points and all 3 of his 3-point hits in the third quarter. Towards actually, it was like the first 5 minutes of the third quarter to get the Bucks back into the game within striking distance to kind of make a run going into the second half. Finished with 9 points and a plus 13 in the plus minus department. And then Ryan Rollins, who we're going to get into for probably the majority of this episode because just what an incredible performance. Ryan Rollins, 25 points, 2 rebounds, 4 assists, 4 steals, 4 of 4 from 3-point range. I hypothesized before this game that both Ryan Rollins and Amir Coffee would be the X factors of this game. And, Ryan Rollins maybe was a little bit more of an obvious pick because there's no KPJ, and supposedly there was supposed to be no Cole Anthony, but he did end up suiting up and playing, though he didn't knock down his shots. He was amazing as a playmaker once again and really proving his worth as the drive and kick savant that the Bucks, maybe they didn't necessarily expect him to be, but that's what he's become and what he's shown to be able to do. But Ryan Rollins on both sides of the floor was just incredible. I knew going into the Jalen Brunson matchup, I predicted that maybe Ryan Rollins would use his quickness and his handle to his advantage to kind of get by Jalen Brunson on the perimeter. But again, with the 3-point shooting, he knocked down 4 of his 4 looks from 3, and they were basically all catch and shoot threes except maybe for one. But other than that, he was driving to the basket obviously pretty regularly. But you didn't expect him to finish with 25 points on the night. I believe a career high for Ryan Rollins, 5 of 5 from the free throw line as well, 8 of 11 from the field overall, 26 points or 25 points in 26 minutes. But his impact on both sides of the floor could not have been overstated or understated at all. Just even though Jalen Brunson finished with a cool 36, I believe. That was just a masterful performance from Ryan Rollins on both sides. And we're going to have to start having some real uncomfortable conversations, even though Kevin Porter Jr., he's not really been given the opportunity to showcase why he should remain as the starting point guard because he went out with, 2 minutes left in the first quarter of the first game, first quarter, which he was sensational, by the way. But we're going to have to start having some really uncomfortable conversations, but we'll save that for the next thing. Also, just, this is kind of like an ego boost for me a little bit because the 2 guys that I said were going to have a pretty big impact in this game ended up both doing so. And of course, Amir Coffee maybe a little bit less than Ryan Rollins, but Amir Coffee was also incredibly solid in the minutes that he played. Came in and scored 8 points, knocked down 2 of his 3 attempts from the field, 1 of his 2 from 3, and knocked down all 3 of his free throws. And for Amir Coffee, in just a shade under 15 minutes of play, he basically did everything that I would have liked him to do, or everything that I would have thought he could bring to this game. And again, what I kind of hypothesized before the game the other day, saying that Amir Coffee, if he can both use his 3-point shooting to his advantage and then off of the 3-point shooting, use that to attack closeouts, get in the mid range, hit nice fadeaway jumpers at the free throw line, then he could be really, really effective and more effective than the Jordan Clarksons, the Gershon Yabuselis, the guys that the Knicks brought in to be their main focal points off the bench. And Amir Coffey did just that, finished with an uber efficient 8 points in a relatively short amount of time. And again, he did exactly what I thought he would be doing. He was casting up both off the dribble and catch and shoot threes. He splashed one of his two looks, and then he also drove the closeouts from the corner and, floated to the free throw line, knocked down a fadeaway jumper, also got to the free throw line and knocked down all his opportunities there. And on top of pretty decent to serviceable defense, and though he finished with a -5 in the plus minus department, I feel like Amir Coffey's impact can't be understated at all. He was very, very solid off the bench. Of course, Bobby Portis also had 9 points on 10 shots, though, so not the best outcome there. Torian Prince with 8 points as well, knocking down two of his three looks from 3 point range, 3 of 4 from the field overall. Kyle Kuzma, in 19 and a half minutes, did not have his most impactful game from an offensive perspective, but he did get to the line to make up for his 0 for 2 game from the field. So finished with 5 points, 5 boards, and an assist. But really, honestly, one of the stories of the game is Miles Turner, because though the shots still haven't been falling, Miles has been starting out pretty inconsistent both from the field and from 3 point range in general. His impact in this game against Karl Anthony Towns to slow him down, to just flat out take him out of the game, was sensational. I think Cat finished 2 of 12 from the field. I want to get that kind of squared away. Yeah, 2 of 12 from the field. Of course, he's going to get his rebounds because last year he was, if he wasn't leading the league in rebounds, he was second or third, with up there with Domantas Sabonis. But Karl Anthony Towns finished with only 8 points, 12 boards, 5 of them offensive though, so that's not really what you want to see. But again, that's what he does. An assist, a steal, a block, 3 turnovers, and in the plus minus, a big fat 0. So Miles Turner effectively took him out of this game. And though Miles wasn't the greatest in terms of the offensive end either, just finished with 5 points. His defensive impact, not even just with taking Cat out of the game, but just in general, his abilities as a rim deterrent and his ability to take guys like Ariel Hukporti out of the paint because of his 3 point shooting threat. It's, another thing that I thought going into the game would really impact things, and that's just what ended up happening. But Cole Anthony as well, and again, another point that just can't be understated. He is legitimately a fantastic passer, a fantastic playmaker, fantastic at collapsing the defense, spraying it out to AJ Green, Gary Trent Jr., who also had a cool 11 points in this one. Cole Anthony, though the shots weren't falling, he was developing almost like in real time as a passer to me, because, excuse me, when he was driving towards the paint and effectively kicking out to the Gary Trents, the Torian Princes of the world, he was able to then use that to drive into the paint. And then when he would see, let's say, a guy like Giannis down low, I think there was a play in the second half where this happened. Cole Anthony would drive. He would use the threat of him spraying it out to the 3 point line first. He would kind of fake the pass out and then dish it underneath once the big men would react and try to like scramble out to start the rotation and get on the nearest 3 point shooter. Cole Anthony would kind of turn his head or fake that pass and then just drop it off to a wide open Giannis for an easy dunk. And these are the kinds of decisions that are really going to improve not only Cole Anthony's spot within the pecking order of the hierarchy of the lineup or the point guard rotation, but it's really going to help this Milwaukee Bucks team find the easiest looks possible. If he can make those kinds of high level decisions when it's the best time to kick out to a Ryan Rollins in the corner for a three, or simply use the threat of it to fake the kick out, throw it down to Miles or throw it down to Giannis for an easy dunk. Differentiate, finding the ways that those plays differentiate themselves and how those looks will kind of open themselves up to each other, or like one thing can lead to the other. This is the next huge step in Cole Anthony's development as a passer, and we saw it in real time against a New York Knicks team that is now 2-2 on the year. Obviously, the Bucks moved to 3-1. What an incredible start to the new year. Okay, so talking about Ryan Rollins, this is, if he can stay relatively as consistent of a scorer, though he may not have the actual like volume output of either shots or points or whatever to get up to 25 points in a given game. If he can score consistently around 14 to 15 points, throw in maybe 5 assists and 2 steals a game, and he's knocking down 40% of his threes. What argument is there for Ryan Rollins to not start games consistently for the Milwaukee Bucks going forward? Because just the obviously the separating factor, though Kevin Porter Jr., though Cole Anthony are both very serviceable defenders, and Kevin Porter Jr. specifically is fantastic at getting in the passing lanes, and Cole Anthony did much of the same against the Knicks. Ryan Rollins also did much of the same against the Knicks. His defensive impact just so far outweighs the other two that, and the fact that it seems like he's developing minute by minute as a lead ball handler and as a pull up 3 point shooter, catch and shoot 3 point shooter. What argument could there be for him to come off the bench in the near future if he keeps this up, if he keeps up this kind of output? Again, maybe not the volume of 25 points, huge numbers like that, but if he's throwing up a consistent maybe 13 to 15 points a game on 60% from the field and he's knocking down 40% of his threes or plus, what could possibly be holding him back? And this is just it's this is the reality of the situation, because if Ryan Rollins were to start, then I feel like there would be a little bit more kind of versatility that you can get into with the bench unit, because if you can keep Cole Anthony coming in off the bench to act as this really energizing force that's just like spraying the ball around all across the perimeter and can also act as a very consistent and reliable scorer in his own right because of just how we've seen him grow in the NBA. It's really going to do a lot of things if Ryan Rollins can kind of start the game as this defensive stalwart that's also a pretty solid passer and playmaker. Then Cole Anthony kind of just comes in and just turns things up to 100 in terms of the actual like speed and tempo of the offense and getting downhill and finding Giannis or finding Miles Turner or finding shooters on the outside. The one thing though, of course, is that a Kevin Porter Jr., Cole Anthony backcourt rotation, let's say coming off the bench, it just does not have the same kind of fit, does not have the same kind of flow as, let's say, a Cole Anthony, Ryan Rollins 1-2. So the lineup versatility it's going to be different, but Ryan Rollins potentially moving forward as the starting point guard of this team, these are the things that Doc Rivers is going to have to think about, he's going to have to consider, because if Ryan Rollins just continues to obviously play himself into keeping this role, then something with the backup backcourt is going to change. So that's my view of things. But moving forward, we saw Ryan Rollins take on a massive challenge in defending Jalen Brunson, and of course guys like Jordan Clarkson off the bench, who's a former Sixth Man of the Year winner. A lot of great one-on-one scorers that could have potentially taken advantage of him, but they didn't necessarily. Jalen Brunson finished with 36 points on relatively efficient shooting, but a -11 in the plus minus, and so it didn't really seem like his one-on-one scoring saved the Knicks in that aspect, or did a great job of it. And in a moment like this, you would just want to let a guy like Jalen Brunson go, or a guy like Ryan Rollins go at Jalen Brunson, leave him alone, and kind of just trust him against Jalen Brunson. And you're not really going to stop a guy like Jalen Brunson from getting his 30 points. But if you're able to make the shots tough, if you're able to kind of get him out of his rhythm a little bit, then you take that as a win. So maybe 36 points from Jalen Brunson doesn't look great in the box score when you consider that Ryan Rollins was his primary defender, but you also have to think about how much easier it would have been for him to get that 36 on another guy, or how comfortable he would have looked doing it, or if he would have been able to do it on a few less shots, or get to the free throw line a little bit more. Like, these are the kinds of things that Ryan Rollins, it's why he makes so much of a difference. And now coming up for a home game against the Golden State Warriors, against Steph Curry, Jimmy Butler, this is going to be another insanely tough test for Ryan Rollins, because now coming off of guarding Jalen Brunson, who is one point guard in the Eastern Conference that has gotten off to an incredibly hot start to start this year, Steph Curry is just like on another level right now. It's like he's transforming back to, or reverting back to, his 2016 ways to begin the year. So this is going to be a really interesting test, because we know how great and how consistent of a one-on-one defender Ryan Rollins is. But in terms of guarding a guy like Steph, where it's like there's nothing like we've ever seen from him before, is that the off-ball movement is the main thing. We need to see Ryan Rollins take a leap in terms of being a great team defender, and not saying that he already isn't, but this is going to be a major test for him to prove to Doc Rivers that he can be a very great on the fly communicator, whether it's Steph running from the left wing to the right and he's going over a few screens, and Ryan Rollins is going to have to kind of shout out directions and things like that and really stay on top of where he is at all times. This is going to be a massive, massive test. In terms of the rest of things for Giannis, for Miles Turner, the obvious thing with this Golden State Warriors team that has been apparent for the last few years is that they really, really lack size in the front court. And if Al Horford, who just sat out a game against the Grizzlies because he's not playing back to backs at all this year, if Al Horford is a little bit more tired, if he's not really, into the flow of the game as much, and then it's going to have to be Draymond Green playing full time small ball five, Giannis and Miles Turner have to fully take advantage of that. And not saying that Draymond won't be able to, you know, stop either of these guys because he's one of the greatest defenders of all time. But Giannis and Miles Turner can run through him or just flat out shoot over the top of him, and there's not really any arguing that that's a possibility. That this front court tandem of Giannis and Miles Turner has the potential to dominate against Draymond and Al Horford. So they're just gonna have to go through it. But one thing that they have to be conscious of is that Draymond is he's always going to be looking to take a charge, and him seeing Giannis flying down the floor, he's not scared to kind of step in and try and take that contact. Same thing with a guy like Brandon Pajemski for the Golden State Warriors, who in his rookie year he was leading the league in charges, and since then he's kind of been like top 2, 3 in charges drawn. So the Warriors, probably like one of the main prerogatives of their defense, or the kind of main priorities, is that they're going to be trying to catch Giannis slipping with a full head of steam going towards the basket, and they're going to try to take charges because they have several guys that aren't scared to step in, take that contact, and then have the play go the other way for an offensive foul. So, yeah, I mean, I feel like those are my main components of this game. It's obviously it's going to be a really, really tough test. So we're going to have to see how if the Milwaukee Bucks spacing and 3-point shooting can stack up against a Warriors team that has historically been the most dominant 3-point shooting team in the NBA. But anyways, that'll be it for me today. Thank you very much for tuning into another episode of Bucks Latest presented by FanArch. Once again, I've been Dean Simon, and before you go, oh my goodness, throat is going everywhere today. Before you go, make sure to leave that like, leave that comment down below, and subscribe. Still trying to get to 2,000 subscribers, so if that's something that you want to do, please press that button down below. Turn on those post notifications, and I will see you guys in the next one. Go Bucks.